Alrighty, it's a top tier. You're weighted as a top tier here. No artillery. I don't like when there's no artillery with when I'm playing my light tanks, but whatevs is not that big of a deal. So you can counter spot going this way since you spawned over here. Normally, if you spawn over here, I would recommend going to this side, but you can basically on when you play assault, you kind of want to watch and see what your team does. So you can start heading out this way just so you can see how many people cross over here. And you can do that by coming up either over on this side, like right about right here or so. Because they spawn mostly on this side, you kind of want to be wary if they send their light tanks forward. But you do want to get some sort of intel, and you can use all these buildings and rocks and things right here as hard cover if you get lit. Which looks like you're doing, so that's good. A little far forward, but you just want to be careful about how far forward you move here.
It's a trap!
And then run, run! So you did get some intel, which is good. And it's kind of suggestive that their team either is playing along this back line or they move to the other side. And so generally what happens if I scout one side, if I don't have any avenue with which to push, I'll go and scout the other side. The LTTB does not have very good gun depression. That's a major limitation of the tank. You also apparently do not have optics on the LTTB, which is, I would consider that required reading materials. Especially with these high tier light tanks, you want to play with optics.
It's a trap!
And there wasn't really much reason for you to push up behind this IS. You could have accomplished the same thing and been safer through that other path there. Bit of an aggressive play, but if they're going to sit up there and camp, that's fine. It's to your advantage. I would actually try to keep them tracked there rather than just trying to shoot through the lower glaciers. Because, like, if you look at these guys over here, right, like that T-150 is not shooting at you, so that's not really that much of a concern. And you could have pinned this guy up here for your team. So again, it's one of those things where if they're gonna let you sit there and own them, then you should try to keep them tracked. Okay, now is when you need to do something a little bit more. You can still keep pushing around this north side a little bit to get shots on that T-150, for example. You don't want to necessarily take on that T-32 frontally where he's at. The T-29 is coming in. Like, you can still be a lot more effective moving through the flank here than being the frontal tank. You have tanks on the front. You just need more. You just need more people actually dealing damage. And so that was going to happen eventually, right? That T-29 was just sitting there the whole time. And you still got a bunch of campers back here. It's actually probably better for you to go over on this side a little bit now, because the other 25/2 is on that side. So he's going to draw attention to that side. And so whatever side it gets drawn attention to, you don't want to be on that side. Like, you want to be on the opposite side of wherever the attention is. That's like the best thing about light tanks, is that you have a high degree of maneuverability, so you want to utilize that as much as you possibly can. And then now you just want to take down this T-29 as fast by any means possible from any direction. And again, the best thing to do with a light tank is go to the opposite side of where your team's at, create a 1-2 situation for your team. Right, because as long as he's facing you, then they're going to have easy shots, and then be careful of not getting shot. But this is pretty good. Luckily, he's a pretty bad player. Now, see, he's driving down with his back towards you. If you should at least shoot him in the engine deck, but you should shoot him in the trap. There you go. Crispy button. I don't know why your team is so incredibly slow, but that's fine. Okay, and then what you really need to do is just come through towards this center area here. You don't need to go all the way to the 5 line, but you need to be at least on this 3 line. You can get shots to help out your T-32. You don't want to be too far north here. Like, you don't need to assault the cap. You basically want to look and see if you can get shots into this area right here, because what you're trying to do is preserve these guys right now. And ideally you want to get a little bit closer than where you're at, because sniping with these tanks is not super awesome, although apparently it's working out because this guy's just gonna sit there. But keep going. I would ignore the T-44 for now. That's not something that you can take. Your guys are now all dead on this side. And then, so now you can't take these guys frontally, so now you want to think about seeing if you can get into an area where you can shoot at that guy. Looks like they still have a lot of health. And then right now you're kind of playing the role of like a tank destroyer, which is not really your strength. Your strength is the fact that you can relocate faster than these guys, right? But you're sitting here at about 100-meter range from them. You use your speed and camo. Don't try to brawl with these guys. You're not a brawling tank. And then see how they all shifted north? You can go around through this up the south side if you wanted. And again, that's the beauty of the light tanks, is that you can relocate, and if you see them shift to one side, relocate to their weak side. You can probably even cross this center bridge. You probably don't even need to go all the way to the south. You can try not to look out for that thing. And you don't want to be super close. Like, you literally just want to drive out here like this, and then be up here. And then if you're up here, you can shoot these guys for free. Like, you don't want to try to brawl with this guy from close range. Like, that's not your strength. You want to drive way the hell out here, where he can't do anything to stop you. And you don't need APCR for the side of an OHO. So just drive down south over here, come up over here, you can shoot this guy for 100% free, and there's nothing that he can do about it. Same thing for his buddies back here, you can shoot them for free. And that's really what you need to create. Because your team been melting. So you're not going to be able to save these guys from the position that you're at. So you're just going to watch them die. And then going back to the same side of them, I don't think is really super productive. Because then you're just going to have to face heavy tanks frontally with a light tank. And so you need to be in a position a little bit more north where you can get shots on these guys. Because like they're going to kill the KV-85 before you even have a good shot on anything. So you never want to be in a position where you're waiting for your team to die before you get a good shot. And then now all you need to do is just be running away pretty much this whole time. And you want to play range games with them. You're not going to have enough ammo anyways, but... So what you want to do is you want to get them inside the blue circle. You always want to spot them inside the blue circle.
It's a
And
trap!
then you want to get that shot, and then run away. So running away just to run away isn't productive because you're going to lose anyways. So what you should be doing right now is not going, oh, well, I'm going to live. What you should be doing right now is practicing. This is when you practice beating people who are trying to chase you down.
It's a trap!
You're not going to beat this guy by brawling him. You're definitely not going to do that if you let him ram you. Oh, time right now. Anyhow, so shoot, I'm gonna restart it real quick just so I can get to the minimap easier. No. The game was lost. He wasn't gonna win the game. The reason why you play the range games is because you need to practice it. I guarantee you that you probably have not played that range game enough, and it's a good thing to practice. Like, it's a good thing to practice that. Okay, let's say it wasn't assault mode, right? And that T-44 is chasing you, and he's got 800 health, and you have 400 health. How do you win? Like, you need to practice those situations of how do I win this encounter when I'm up against an equivalent tier tank that has twice as much health as me. How do I win? And you need to practice those things, even if it's not going to win you the game, right? Because you're not going to win. Even if you killed that T-44, you're not going to win. You're still going to lose. The loss was already sealed. But the point is that you have an opportunity to practice that, to practice going, okay, well, if I go here, if he chases me here, I get a free shot there. And then I move here, and if he chases me here, then I get a free shot here. Right? That's what you should be thinking when you're playing that, because there's going to be one game eventually where that's going to be important, where the winning or losing the game is going to be, can I kill this high tier tank that's trying to, or this equivalent tier tank that's trying to chase me down? And so having that practice in hand is always important. So anyways, so you went over through this middle to spot, which I thought was fine. I didn't see any problem with that. I don't know necessarily that it would have driven out quite so far. You didn't need to drive out quite that far in order to spot into this area. I usually just look at the circles, right? And I would have optics on your LTTB, because it doesn't look like this is an optics LTTB, because it should be more out like to about right there. And so you just basically need to get the blue circle into this area right about there, right? And you don't want to overextend too much, because otherwise when you get lit, you're going to be the one that ends up getting shot. And then coming back is fine. And then you stayed on this side, which was okay. I mean, I like I said, I would have went through to the other side at least to spot or see what was going on there. But your team was playing pretty passively here. And so you pushed up with that IS. I don't think that was the right path to take up following the IS. I thought you would have been a lot safer just driving along here, where you would have been spotted, and then you would have just dropped off over here, and you would have made it there without, even getting lit until you pulled up over there. By taking this path, you basically needlessly exposed yourself to enemy fire without actually getting any advantage. I mean, again, you could have taken a different route and been much safer and accomplished the same thing in pretty much the same amount of time. So that's something to keep in mind. I also would have tried to keep tracking that Tiger P. Since that T-150 wasn't trying to push you, just keeping that Tiger P tracked out in the open would have helped your team. Your team is a little bit Tato, but that's going to happen with teams. Their team was just as bad, right? They had 4 or 5 guys up on this plateau, but they just didn't push down. There was an IS and a LTTB below them, and they didn't crush them. They just sat in the back, and they just got owned because of it. And that's good for you. But one of the things that you should always be looking to try to create when you're playing these light tanks is a flanking situation. You don't want to try to end up taking things frontally. And if they're going to give you free run at a flank, like if they give you free run around this side, push around on this side, right? And that creates a 1-2 situation where, like that T-29, if that T-29 is facing at you, your team can just shoot him for free, right? If he's facing at your team, then you can shoot him for free, right? So it's a win-win situation, and those are the types of situations that you want to create with your mobility. So getting down that T-29 was fine. Again, your team was really slow on this side, and that'll happen. And then moving through this middle area here, you still have 3 guys that were alive over here. You wanted to try to get over here to try to keep these guys alive for as long as possible. And that's one of the things that we try to stress a lot in these replays, is that you always have to look at it as a team game. And even if you're in a light tank, like, you need to try to figure out how, is there a way that I can try to keep these guys alive? As you're fighting over here, you need to be thinking about what's going on over here as well. So that's something that you have to consider. And then once they had started shifting their guys back north to the cap, really you kind of sat here and you basically just tried to trade. I really felt like if you just drove through over here to the backside, you would have had much easier shots than what you ended up having without having to wait. Like you had to wait for them to cross that WZ-111 to cross an open area. You had to wait for the IS-3 to cross in the open area. You did get to the side of the OHO. Again, you don't need APCR to pen the side of the OHO. You can pen it very easily with AP. Save your APCR for when you actually have to fight things frontally. But you could have left just even after he spotted you. You could have just left down here, come around over here, and been up over on this area. And that's sort of the advantage of playing the light tanks is that once you move out, especially in this late game, once they're sort of clustered, you move out to open areas of the map and you can just feast on them. You can just feast on them because you have superior view range, you have superior camo. You don't have a very good gun in terms of the pen and the alpha or whatnot, but you could nibble away at them because they'll either be forced to move or they'll sit there and take it, right? And if they move, that creates opportunities for your team. And if they sit there and take it, that creates opportunities for you. But if you stay on the same side as your team, right, what ends up happening is that you get the same shots as them, right? And if your shots aren't that good, then their shots aren't going to be that good unless for some reason they have some motivation or reason to move. But as soon as you get around to a flank, that creates a bad situation for these guys, for all of their heavy tanks in the middle, right? Because they're going to get shot from one side or the other. And when you make it a no-win decision where you're like, hey, you're either going to get shot by me or you're going to get shot by my team, right? That's the types of situations that you want to create with your light tanks, especially when you're looking at your ammo count and you're going, okay, I'm starting to run out of ammo now. And then at the end, again, this wasn't a winnable game just because your team didn't do quite enough damage. Your team probably needed to do about another 1,000 damage or so, and you could have won it. But this game was a little bit out of reach. And then again, though, what I'm stressing is that when you know you're going to lose, and this wasn't a matter of, oh, we can draw it out. No, you were going to lose, because the time was going to run out or you were going to die. You weren't going to kill them all, right? You didn't have enough time. I mean, probably didn't have enough ammo to do it. But, you want to practice that. Like when that T-44 is chasing you, you're like, okay, you should make that, it should be a mini game for you of, okay, I'm going to lose this game, but can I get this T-44 down, right? He has 800 health. I have 400 health. Can I kill him? And that's what you need to be looking to practice there, not just, oh, I want to survive. So if we look at the stats, let's see, did I queue that up? I don't remember. Okay, apparently I did. You did pretty well. Again, your team had problems dealing damage, which is unfortunate, but it's one of those things that happen. Your team that was on the west side with you was pretty passive, but you did a pretty good job, so that's always nice to say. The shooting was pretty good, and some of the sniping was a little bit lucky, but I'm thinking on like that JPZ or whatever it was. I think it was a 7 or the 6. Let's say, yeah, it was a 7. It was JP. Sniping with that LTTB gun is it's hit and miss, especially from like 500 meters. But otherwise, GG, nice try. 'Twas a good effort. Alrighty, and then up next is Impolite Canucks Super Pershing on Swamp. Alrighty, so top tier, no arty, that's both good things for you. So you can actually push either direction in a super Pershing in this type of comp, because you've got a pretty heavy comp. They have a reasonably heavy comp as well. But if your guys, like if your heavies push south, you can push south to help them, or you can push north to try to counter their mediums. It's a dealer's choice in this case. I like playing through this sort of 3-line here because it gives me options to push through the middle if I feel like I need to help the north, or the south if I need to help through the south. But there's very few bad options in this particular config. I do really like the Super Pershing. I think it's a very strong tank. It's just a little bit slow. And then the only thing you need to be careful of as you push down this 2 line is if they have a camper right here. And again, this is why these circles are important. So as long as this yellow circle doesn't cross this area right here, these guys can't light you. Like it is not possible for the game mechanics for them to light you unless the yellow circle crosses this area. Of course, unless they, just YOLO straight through there. So nothing outside of the yellow circle will ever detect you. So that's always what that's the moral of the story. So they're pushing their FCM up there. He's the one that spotted you. And then nothing outside of the gray circle will ever really shoot you too much, unless it's an RD.
Ready to fire.
Unfortunately, you have a YOLO IS-3. And this is a situation where you can push through, sort of where you're at. You want to actually prevent these guys from pushing up too far, because if they get a good position over here, then your guys can't push out here because they're going to be pushing into a crossfire. You need to be careful of pushing up through this lane right here, because as you push up through this lane, you actually push into a crossfire like where that Roomba is at. And again, you have the advantage of there not being artillery here.
Penetration. Penetration. Enemy armor is damaged.
And whenever the enemy lets you sit there and shoot them in the face for free, do it as much as possible.
Enemy is hit.
After 5 shots now, he's like, oh no.
They're knocked out.
And so you're losing kind of on this north, and you're not trading that well on this south. You need to be careful of driving forward through this area right here, because you can actually get shot. We do know that their team is over there.
Penetration.
It's a trap!
It's just something you need to be aware of. So turning this next corner is where things get sticky, especially because there's a Roomba right here. Or there was. Looks like he might have backed off. And so you want to start thinking about going back now, right? So you gotta look and see what's going on with your team. You've got a lot of guys here. I wouldn't worry too much about that. I would more worry about this. You always want to start looking at the map early, especially the slower tank that you're in. You have to be thinking a little bit more ahead. And it's the T95 principle, where if you're in a T95 and you think you might lose the other flank, you already got to start turning around. The Super Pershing is similar in a sense.
Target acquired. Target
You'd rather shoot the
It's a
Roomba.
trap!
Target unlocked.
You can also, here's where you should be using HE, right? The Roomba is out in the open.
Enemy is hit. Enemy armor is destroyed.
And then don't push too far forward, because you're gonna start getting shot from that other side. And then you don't want to push across this middle, because that's gonna basically put you into a crossfire. You want to go back around on this side, where you won't expose yourself to other lanes of fire. You should have your gun facing this way. Your guys are still moving forward, unfortunately, and remember, it's always better to move back. Unless the only chance you have is to cap out, you should always go back and defend. And you can drive up through this side. I don't really like it. I actually prefer coming all the way around on this side, especially when there's no artillery. You can just get over on this side, and there's literally nowhere on the cap for them to hide. I don't like playing these middle areas because it's too easy to get flanked. If you're on the outside with no arty,
Target released.
Yeah, you
It's
didn't
a
need to auto aim
trap.
that. Just stop and aim. Just stop and aim. Oh my God, stop and aim.
Fire. Target release.
Like, you don't need to keep moving forward. You know, those shots aren't really going to get that much harder. Let it aim all the way in. Unless the time's about to run out. You know, just take your time, make these shots count. Okay. It's fine. And then now what you want to do, since you're probably going to lose this side over here, you can actually come back around this way if you want, or you come around this way if you want, but you want to start getting up here first. And then hopefully these guys don't die by the time you do it. And this is sort of the problem with the Super Pershing, is that it is a little bit slow. So, like you see where most of their team is, but you're like, oh, I can't get there in time. And you want to look and see how much health your guys have here. T-34 is still pretty full. KV-4 is still pretty good. So you're still in a pretty good position. And then so once you get up into this area here, you'll be able to start coming around the backside of these guys, especially if the KV-4 comes around with you. You just need to be careful that you don't get sniped out. But we know that 4 of their tanks are over here, so it's probable that the Indian's not in any unique position. Oh, there he is. The Indian's in the middle. Unfortunately, they were able to push your guys. Take out the Indian as fast as you can. I wouldn't worry too much about these guys across the way quite yet. But they are going to be up on this ledge right here.
Enemy armor is
Don't turn
It's a
turn
trap.
towards the Indian. Yeah, keep your armor face that way. When the Indian's not shooting at you, you don't need to have your armor face towards him. You always want to have your armor face towards whoever's going to be the threat. Okay, so then now what you want to do is actually come back around over here you basically need to not get too far away from your guys, because you basically need to be in a position where you can support your team if this T-34 gets pushed. And this T-34 should really fall back to that position over there. So it looks like they're driving straight across, so that's actually potentially good for you. You need to see if you can find that guy over there, because you don't want to get flanked right now.
penetration.
The T-20 is literally right underneath
It's a
you.
trap.
And then you don't want to sit up here on this ledge right here. You can go further forward, right? So you know that the Tiger 2 is back there. We don't know where the VTU is, but he might be in that range. So one thing that you can do is actually just push forward right here, right, and engage the T-20, because you can bully the T-20. There's no reason why you can't. And you don't want to let guys sit up underneath you. And you don't want to give this Tiger 2 too much side. Right, so you're overexposing yourself a little bit when you don't need to.
Rock hit.
And you don't want to turn your turret like that. So basically, you're allowing too many lanes of fire on you. What you want to do is you want to minimize those lanes of fire.
Penetration.
It's a trap.
You should really just push that T-20. Oh, he's behind you. Now is when you don't want to push the T-20. Because you could have just faced off on that KV-2 and been fine.
Target acquired. Penetration. Let's find
Oh,
another
good.
target.
Their dude is camping.
Did hit. Got him.
I didn't really feel like playing that T-20 was as important as playing the KV-2, but
Armor is hit. The periscope is fixed, but it's still fragile. Track fixed. Let's roll. Penetration. Enemy is hit. Enemy armor is destroyed.
right, that's fine. You should be able to bully this guy.
We didn't even scratch them.
You need to be careful to not back up too much, because this VTUs can shoot you.
Penetration.
Unfortunately, I think he's going to be able to get down your T-34.
Enemy armor is
Just
damaged.
go, just drive forward. Don't drive back.
We're done for. Everyone get out.
You just need to So you did fine. So coming down here was fine. Playing through this area was fine. I didn't really think that you needed to push through here for your team. I thought that if you pushed back a little bit earlier, you might have been able to save some of your team back here. But even that was fine. It wasn't too bad. You cleared the cap, which is fine. But again, pushing through towards that cap, like you didn't need to fire wildly on the move. As soon as that 3601 or whatever it was lit, you could have just stopped, aimed in fully, shot him, and then continue moving forward while you're reloading, and then just before you're done reloading, stop, re-aim, get the next shot. Right? When you have time to do that, you want to do that on the way in, because that's going to be the most efficient way to move in through there. And then you actually still had a chance to win the game, because they tried to push through the middle sort of inefficiently, but I didn't really feel like you played this area very well. You basically exposed yourself to far too many lanes of fire when you didn't really need to. You sort of prioritized tanks in a rather odd way. Like I thought the T-20 when he moved up was a priority, but once that T-20 was willing to sit back here, he's not really that much of a threat to you. You could have just turned around and dealt with that KV-2, and that T-20 would have done nothing. Right? Or maybe if he does drive up here, as long as you go around to the side of the KV-2 and keep them both in front of you, it doesn't really matter what the T-20 was doing. But you allowed that KV-2 to shoot you in the ass at least too many times, if not at least one. But so I think that was probably your biggest mistake. I think if you could have done that, then you could have maybe dealt with the rest of it. But so whenever you're outnumbered, what you want to do is you want to take out the people who are the most ISO'd at a time. So like if this T-20 moves forward to this rock and he's ISO'd there, just push forward and bully him, right? If that KV-2 comes around on that side, just pull back and then bully him, because that KV-2 was ultimately ended up being the most ISO'd, because nothing else would have really been able to save him. And they did come at you one at a time. And so just be aware whenever you're fighting against one tank, be aware of what else is shooting you, especially if you're in a armor tank like the Super Pershing, where it's got good frontal armor but the side armor's rear armor is pretty weak. You want to be sure that you're facing the right enemy. Like again, when you're shooting down at that Indian Panzer, you didn't need to turn your armor towards the Indian Panzer, because the Indian Panzer was not only driving away from you, his turret was pointed away from you as well. He's not going to magically whip that turret around and shoot you. But these guys that are all camping up here, those guys are going to shoot you. So you want to keep your armor faced towards them, and you want to try to minimize how much you're turning your side turret as well. Otherwise, they're going to just shoot through the side of the turret. Which is the bad part about playing up here, is that you don't want to just kind of hang out in that area. All right, so if we look at the stats, pretty good. You didn't get a whole lot out of your team. That hurt you. Especially a lot of those guys that ended up going to the Southwest early on, they traded really poorly, which doesn't help. And your guys just got crushed on the North, but they were a little bit outgunned on the North, so that's understandable. But again, was one of those things, like we said during the game, is that the slower the tank that you're in, especially on an armor tank like the Super Pershing is, you have to be aware of what's going on the other side of the map, and at least file it mentally in your head of, oh, we're going to lose over there, so I got to think about when do I go back, and how, what's the safest route to get back. And so that's something that you should be thinking about, even when you're playing on one side of the map. You need to be a little bit aware of what's going on the other side of the map. Alrighty, otherwise pretty good. 24 of 33 is but a lot of those were kind of long range shots. But for the most part, I thought you you did a good job with your ammo selection and the aiming. And the damage blocked by armor is, like I said, the front of this tank is really trolly, especially when they have to attack you from range and when there's no artillery. You should be able to beast it up a bit. GG, nice try. Alright, so the next one will be DASPs. Cromwell on Windstorm. Alrighty, let's see. They have one small arty. Your mid-tier, pretty much the same comps. Generally in medium tanks, I like going through here, at least spotting what they send north. It'll allow you to get a free shot of damage and get an idea of what they send out there, whether it's heavies or mediums or lights or whatever. Especially in the Cromwell. The Cromwell's a pretty quick tank, so you can get up there to spot pretty quickly. And then you can always just relocate out of that position to wherever you need to go. Like if they send a lot of tanks up there, you might want to just relocate and go and press someplace else.
Time to roll out.
I don't like pressing north straight off in any tank, really, light, medium, or I guess maybe you could theoretically do it in a heavy, because the avenues for you to actually spot over here aren't very good. Like, you basically will spot them in about the same area that they spot you, which is right around in that area right there, which isn't totally helpful. If you go over here early, then you can spot them coming across, and at least you know what you're dealing with. It also gives you an opportunity to get shots for free damage. Like you would have spotted this Cromwell that was right there. You would have spotted him crossing. Let me see. I gotta remember how it works.
It's a
through
trap!
this area right there.
Damage. That won't bounce.
And so the Cromwell is not a very good sniping machine. The FE304 is shooting at you, so you will probably want to relocate. And so whenever I see an FE304 shoot, I always sort of make a mental calculation that, so when an FE304 shell lands near you, so that shell landed about right here, that means that the FE304 has to be within the yellow ring, because the FE304 range is about that range. And so whenever you look at the map, you want to consider that. Okay, so that if the FE304 shot at me right here, he's probably up behind this little tower area right there, would be my guess. And then just use that information for as far as, okay, now I have to be hidden behind this rock, that rock, whatever. But this is not a very good position where you're at right now, because you're not going to get very good shots, and in order to expose yourself, you need to get lit, and that's going to give arty shots on you.
Enemy is hit. We've damaged them.
So it looks like they have a lot of campers in the back at least, so that's good for you. Again, the gun control on the Cromwell is not very good, so it is not really a ranged sniping tank, so you want to try to avoid that as much as possible. And then whenever you get lit, you know that the FE304 is within range, so you have to keep that in mind. And I think his shot just came in.
Ready to fire. Enemy armor is
It's a
hit.
trap!
And I don't know that pushing through here is that great of an idea. Your
Got him.
Chaffee was already not in a good position.
Target acquired. Frag hit. Enemy armor is hit. Enemy armor is damaged. Enemy is hit.
And we want to keep moving because
Target
of artillery.
unlocked.
And then, so this is a situation where, again, I don't like pushing to that area where you push through the map, because I just don't feel like it's a very good area. Any of these tanks could kill you pretty easily. The artillery could kill you pretty easily. You want to look and see what's going on the rest of the map. So the thing is, like, if you were right here, for example, or even back over in this area over here, you would get the same shots that you're getting now. You just wouldn't be in an area where you're so sort of terminally exposed and can't really get out of. And so you always want to move as far forward for you to get easy shots. And the reason why being here would be profitable is because you know that they have a lot out here. And so when they have a lot of tanks, you don't need to deal with any of these tanks. You could very easily just go in through here and kill things through the middle, right? When you look at the dispersion of the teams right now, right, they control this northeast quadrant, they control the southeast quadrant. You control this northeast, and nobody really controls this one. So, but there's this big gap through the middle, right, where you could just come in, right? All their high tier tanks are either on this outside over here or on this side over here, and you want to be able to, especially in faster tanks or you know, medium tanks, tanks that aren't like heavy tanks, armor tanks, you know, tanks that'll front. You always want to look for these seams in the defense where you can just drive through and start wrecking havoc in the backfield. You don't want to be trying to snipe in a Cromwell, basically. And so you don't want to push this lane either, because you don't want to brawl with any of these tanks either. And so that always has to be the metric as far as what you're going to do in your positioning. You need to think, what is this tank good at? Is this tank, you know, like if it was you brawling against the heavy tank number 6, right, which is an equivalent tier tank, is that good for you? No, not really. Like that's not really the strength of your tank. So you need to keep these things in mind, and that should color, you know, where am I going on this map?
It's a trap!
Got him! Penetration!
And don't forget
It's a
that
trap!
304 can shoot into your lane.
We've damaged them. Permission to engage. Enemy armor is damaged. Enemy vehicle destroyed.
And then you can still get around to this side, because you're going to need to think about what's going on in the base. It looks like your guys are losing through that middle area. This T-29 is pushing forward, so he's going to expose these guys coming back. So if you're up here, you can get shots on these guys as they push through this area right there. Your RD is already out, so your base is reasonably safe. The Jackson can cover it for now. But like this T-29 will get pushed, right? And so again, if you're right here, you get shots on these guys. Or at least force them, ideally your T-29 forces them to come around on this side, or the Comet puts cap pressure, right, so they have to drive around. But you need to be a little bit more forward in order to get shots on these guys. I wouldn't worry too much about the Tiger II at this point. And you don't want to push these guys, right? You don't want to brawl against the Tiger any more than you wanted to brawl against that other lower tier Tiger. But you do want to make sure that you're effective at doing something, right? You can't sit around doing nothing. Well, now that Jackson is dead, now you have to. Now is when if you were over here, you got to think, okay, now I got to go back, right? And you can let them get on the cap. And you want to probably stay on this north side of this building. You don't want to go around the south, otherwise the E-25 can get you. But see, you should be able to get shots on these guys right now. So these guys should be getting owned.
Penetration.
Aim your first shot all the way in.
Enemy armor is damaged.
There's no reason for you not to aim that first shot all the way in. And then just basically wait for your AT2. You got plenty of time. Look out for the E-25. Like I would go peek over on this side, see if you can find the E-25. Oh man, you guys are dying on that other side. You could still save them.
It's a trap!
Oh, nice try.
Everyone, get out.
You could have waited for your AT2 as well, but them's the breaks. Like I would have been more concerned about that E-25. All right. Anyways, So you played through this north area to start, which I don't really find super fruitful, and then you kind of drove in through over into this area, which I still don't find too fruitful. Like with the Cromwell, really the gun control is pretty bad, so you want to be at a closer range. You don't want to ever be sniping in the Cromwell, and basically what you were relegated to is peeking and poking. You knew that they had a lot of their tanks there, so generally if you're the weaker tank up against stronger tanks, and there's more of them, go someplace else. I mean, you have the mobility to just leave and go someplace else. But you still had a pretty good chance to win, even in the late game. The best chance that you had was as your T-29 was pushing into their base, it was pulling their guys back. And if you just basically sat up here and shot these guys for free as they tried to push out over into through this area right here, that could have made a huge difference for your team. Always want to keep an eye on your cap, right? But you have the Jackson back there, and the AT-2 was halfway back there. So those are things that you need to consider. So you always want to look to, especially if you're in a faster tank, you want to keep an eye on the cap, but you still want to be able to support your team. Like especially if they push up over there, you want to be able to create to get damage off of what they're creating, right? Because they're creating a deflection in their tanks where their defense has to come back, right? And their defense coming back means that they have to cross open fields where you get free damage. So you want to try to get that as much as possible, and that puts their guys over here in a bad situation where, right, the T-29 can shoot them from one side, you can shoot them from one side, and so that really keeps them in a tight area within which they can work. And then your Comet was already back here. If he just puts on cap pressure, right, the T-29 can stay hold down back here, get shots on them if they try to push. If they try to push out, you can get shots on them from that situation over there and still keep an eye on the cap. So I think that would have probably been the best move, and that's probably where the game still, the point at which the game still could have been won. Alright, so if we look at the stats, not bad. Your team didn't do horribly, but yeah, could have been better. 19 for 25 is actually pretty good for the ranges that you were actually shooting from. Not too bad. But yeah, just again, you want to play to the strengths of the tank, and the strength of the Cromwell is not long range shooting. So you want to always be ideally on people's flanks and things like that. GG though, nice try.